very, very much. So, well, I'm not going to stop you there. We're going to sing a song which I consider has one of the greatest sing-along choruses ever. I learned this from my old friend Johnny Collins. He learned it from a mutual friend, Keith Kendrick, who was very young at the time, and Keith Kendrick got it from a pamphlet that he discovered in a library, which was BBC songs for programs for schools, sing together, and it had this thing in there, and it had Illy Alley-O, a song by an old tar, and it actually said an old Royal Navy tar, and so we don't know the name of the person who sang this or who wrote the song, but we do know that he was a sailor. So and the chorus has got that great thing. So the chorus goes, Illy Alley, oh. Now I explained it wasn't written by a songwriter, okay? It was a sailor. Illy Alley, oh, cheerily, boys, cheerily, bend your backs and give a pull. Cheerily, I say. Now, I hope everybody will be singing by that time, but if you're not, if you get to cheerily, I say, and you're not doing anything else at that moment, perhaps you'd give a good rousing, I say! Or not, you know. With a long pull and a strong pull, we'll haul away together, boys. Belay every inch of that. Belay, boys, belay. So we'll start with the chorus, and let's enjoy ourselves with this one. Illy alley, oh, cheerily, boys, cheerily, bend your backs and give a pull. Cheerily, I say, with a long pull and a strong pull, we haul away together, boys. Belay every inch of that, belay, boys, belay. Many's the time I've sung this song when the wind's been blowing half a gale, hoisting up a yard or shaking out a reef, or hauling on the sheet of a sail. I shipped on board of a man of war in the merchant service too. I fought for me king and me country while I sailed on the ocean blue. Illy alley, oh, cheerily, boys, cheerily, bend your backs and give a pull. Cheerily, I say, with a long pull and a strong pull, we haul away together, boys. Belay every inch of that, belay, boys, belay. On a bright May day we sailed away on a big East India ship. Though it's many, many years ago, me boys, I'll not forget that trip. We said goodbye to Portsmouth Quay, to Susan, Kate and Jane, and we hadn't been a-sailing but an hour or more when we joined in the old refrain. Illy alley, oh, cheerily, boys, cheerily, bend your backs and give a pull. Cheerily, I say, with a long pull and a strong pull, we haul away together, boys. Belay every inch of that, belay, boys, belay. Now there's one more verse and one more chorus, but I realized that I forgot to mention something in here. That bit, cheerily, boys, cheerily. Now, cheerily, to a sailor, is a technical part of the order for the job that's about to be done. And it doesn't mean do this with a big grin on your face. Now, I didn't know this. When I joined the Navy, I was only a few days past my 16th birthday. I had not the faintest idea about Cheerily. So I was immediately stuffed into a training establishment where for 4 years I learned about injector design, turbine theory, steam expansion ratios, all sorts of stuff. Cheerily, not a word. So after 4 years, they sent me and my mates, about 30 of us, off to a training, the Dartmouth Training Squadron, a small frigate that was on its way to Barbados, which we quite liked. But luckily, they knew that they were getting a bunch of kids who knew nothing of any practical value. And they had arranged for us all to get up every morning whilst we were crossing the Atlantic. The ship would stop, and HMS Torquay, and it would stop in the middle of the Atlantic, and we would be having seamanship training for apprentices, and under the kind tutelage of the senior seaman petty officer, who hated apprentices. And he hated me worst of all because I was the shortest one in my class. I was the shortest one in my class, and I still towered over the senior seaman petty officer. So he hated me very, very. He was, as my old friend John Purdy would have said, not tall enough to hear a clock strike. And so this one particular morning, we were stopped, and it was grey and wet and cold and lumpy, and the ship was stopped, and down in the water was one of the ship's cutters, about 1.75 tons of oak and cast iron and steel, and there were and it was the rope thingies were coming up and over the davits and through a block and tackle and off down the weather deck. And the senior seaman petty officer was going to instruct us how to do this. But first of all, he had to give us some information, and he explained to us that these were not rope thingies at all, because he explained to us that there is no rope on a ship. I found out later he wasn't quite correct. There is still rope on a ship if it's still in big bales, and it's still all held together with brown string gaskets, and it remains rope until you cut the gaskets. It's a bit like water into wine. It's one of those things you have to take in faith, you know. So, and at that point, it magically becomes line. Only then he was explaining that these were not just lines, because they were coming up from the boat and over the davits. They then became falls. Falls are specifically there to hold these boats up out of the water. So we're there, and these rope thingies are by our feet. And he says, "We got the falls!" So we picked up these hairy rope thingies, and then he says, "Marry the falls!" I wasn't even thinking of getting engaged at this point. But then, you know, he explained to us that what he meant was we had to crimp these two rope thingies together so they would both pull at exactly the same and not sort of one slide along the other, and the boat would come out of the water. Perfectly logical. We were engineers, so we understood that stuff. And then he says, "Moving aft, take up the strain." Now, we had already been on board about 4 or 5 days, so we knew he was meaning the blunt end. And so we're going back up, and suddenly we've got the strain. "At my order, stand by, haul away together, handsomely!" And we went charging off up the deck, you see, and the boat's coming up out of the water, and he goes, "Handsomely, handsomely!" And we go, "Oh, bloody hell," you know, we're going faster and faster, and the boat's coming up, and he says, "Handsomely," I said. And I thought, you know, I'm only 20, I'll never be as handsome as this again. And then he shouted, "Belay!" And we all stopped,
which was fabulous because it was actually what he wanted us to do. And it wasn't because we knew what belay meant, it was because it wasn't bloody handsomely. But now we've got this 1 3/4 of seaboat halfway up the ship's side, and he's got us holding it there. And we had to hold it there whilst the senior seaman petty officer, from the goodness of his heart, explained to us in words of one syllable that we had not been hauling away together handsomely. We had been hauling away together cheerily. Yes, because handsomely is like, whereas cheerily is. So you know, this is an academic institution. I feel honour bound to teach you something, so there you go. Now I'm back from the sea again, I'm gonna coil up me ropes on the shore. Have a bit of a spell with me long-haired gal, she's the one I do adore. But there's no doubt, should a war break out, and seamen be required again, I'll join with me crew, me duty for to do, and we'll join in the old refrain. Illy-ally-ally-oh, cheerily, boys, cheerily, bend your backs and give a pull. Cheerily, I say, with a long pull and a strong pull, we haul away together, boys, belay.